Yo, what's up, ladies and gentlemen? Good to see you again, and we're back with our round 8 match against a Gecko Moria mirror matchup. And I know this is the second one that I'm uploading from the tournament of this, but I do think this matchup is really important because there are a lot of people playing not only the Katakuri match, but Gecko Moria as well as Sakazuki. So I do think that these are very important. And this was kind of a really interesting one as well. My opponent ended up winning the dice roll, so he actually decides to go first. I do think that there's like some merit in going second into this matchup, but going first also feels really nice. And he gets a Perona off the first leader swing here, which forces me to trash one. I don't believe that I was lucky enough to have a Perona in hand, but with the brand new search that we had on our turn one, I did end up getting a Perona because I whiffed the entire search on that first, top 3 of the deck. But we get a Perona of our own. I'm just going to swing 7. We force a trash right here, and then he's just going to take. I feel like one important thing to note for the mirror matchup is pretty much arguably like the first 2 life are extremely free. Like if your opponent is swinging 5, there's some merit in countering out depending on hand size as well as, you know, what they're attacking with. But I feel like the first 2 life are usually speaking pretty free. You don't want to take every single hit, you know, like for example, if my opponent attacks with Perona here and then with leader, I will counter out of one of them. I'm not going to take both, but staying healthy in hand size is good. And I know that, you know, there's this idea of wanting to stay at 4 cards in hand to avoid the Perona. Well, realistically, you know, you're kind of just helping your opponent in that way. But my opponent is going to get down the Absalom, and they're going to KO the brand new and now go 6 to life. I believe I'm just going to take this, go down to 3, and now we have our 6 Dawn turn. This is kind of where, if you're running the Hina, the Rebecca Hina package, this is actually a way better turn for you than it is for me on 6. I kind of just have this extra Dawn that's kind of floating around, not really doing much. I'm going to go 6 into my opponent's Perona just to see if we can get some cards out of hand. Potentially just let it go, and he does decide to let it go. Now, this is where I personally am of the mindset that I don't like to attack with my Perona here. I actually want my opponent to swing into my life the following turn. More than likely on their 7 Dawn turn. A lot of times what ends up happening is they will just play a 4 cost and then use leader effect to swing 6. So with Sabo on the board, I can actually just get out of the 5k for free from Absalom, and then if it goes 6 into Sabo, it's just a free 1k. Or if it's 6 into life, it's either a decent take or a pretty easy 2k counter. So I don't like to attack with Perona. I kind of want to force my opponent to give me cards here. And there's also another option that kind of ends up working out for you if you're going second here. And my opponent actually does end up taking that route, which works out really well for me. So I was pretty happy with how this all kind of played out here. And just to go over it real quick, my opponent does take 2 Dawn, and well, he actually just takes some time to decide on what he's going to do, but he will end up taking 2 Dawn and attaching it to leader, using that leader effect to swing 7 into life. And that leaves him with 3 Dawn remaining, which is a pretty awkward number. I mean, it can pretty much like tell me kind of what's happening. Like it makes me feel as though, okay, I'm probably going to be seeing an 8k from Absalom, or maybe a 6 into another brand new. But I trash the Absalom from the Perona and just go ahead and take the life. And he does swing 8 here. And now I do consider countering out because I have, I think, like 3 2k counters in hand, if I'm not mistaken, at this point in the game. I either had 3 or 2. But I am just considering whether I should be taking the life. And I'm going over all the swings that I'll have in the next turn because I am playing 8-cost Gecko Moria. And, you know, with me getting Gecko down on curve, I can essentially wipe his entire board. And sure will be at 1 life, but I will have Sabo up, the potential to play another Sabo the turn after, or even just, you know, further the gap with a second Gecko Moria. So yeah, I'm now extremely up on cards in hand. I've got multiple swings to go into his board, and this first 5k into Absalom actually I think does the trick, so he just lets it go for the 5. So that works out great for us. That means that we can now poke into life. I'm just going to go 5 with lead, see what he does. He is just going to take this one, and now I can really apply the pressure and swing 6 with Sabo, because if he goes down to 2, we're looking great, but we do get a 2k counter as well, which I can't really complain about. 8-cost Moria is going to get the Lucci and Helmeppo combo off here. So now I can just lower the Perona, end up KOing both of those cards, leaving my opponent with absolutely nothing on board. And yeah, I'm feeling extremely good about the position right now. Obviously, our board is terrifying for my opponent to look down. If he does have the 8-cost Moria, you know, probably the best thing he can do here is choose between getting rid of my own 8-cost Moria with an Ice Age play, or potentially getting rid of 2 of my characters by using like a Great Eruption into Helmeppo Lucci. So those are really just kind of the options that I'm looking down. And no matter what, that means that leader is only going to be swinging 5k. And I'm not threatened by that at all. We have tons of cards in hand, so just a 5k attack into either life or Perona is totally fine with me. 5 into Helmeppo is more than likely the best idea here, just because it does stop a potential extra swing the following turn, but I still think that just getting Helmeppo back into trash is very useful for me, because I, at this point in the game, don't believe I had a second one in trash. So just having that again can basically just recycle my Gecko Moria effect. But he does use the Great Eruption onto Lucci, so now I know that more than likely what I'm going to be expecting is an 8-cost into Lucci Helmeppo to KO Perona as well as Lucci. It still leaves me with 2 attacks on board, a very annoying blocker for my opponent to deal with, and it gives me options of being able to remove his entire board once again. So both Lucci and Perona are going to get KO'd, but I am not sweating it right now. Maybe if I didn't have a second Moria already at this point, I would be a little, you know, a little like, okay, what do we need to do? I need to, you know, get rid of the Lucci for sure, using Absalom and trash. You know, and I'm just kind of like going over it in my head exactly what's the best way to do this, because I knew that I can get rid of the 8-cost. However, I also wanted to get rid of Lucci simultaneously, and if I leave Helmeppo up, it does give my opponent the potential chance to remove my Sabo and go for game. But we are very healthy in hand, so it depends on how much counter I have, how aggressive I can be right here. And so after taking a little bit of time to decide, like, okay, what are the possible ways my opponent can KO me the next turn, I kind of, you know, figure out, all right, if he's got this many swings, I have this much counter, you know, there's no way that he can buff up using a certain amount of Dawn to get over what I have in hand. And just doing that math in head, it allows me to pretty much just figure out, like, okay, I'm pretty safe. I can just start to swing for board and potentially leave Helmeppo up, because I want to give my opponent this false sense of security that I don't have enough in hand, and maybe I just didn't have enough to get rid of the threat. But, I mean, it should be pretty obvious. I'm choosing to go 5 into life here and not into Helmeppo. I'm kind of leaving them with no other option than to do the exact play that I'm talking about the next turn, is to use Helmeppo to go for game. But 5 into life does get a 1k counter with Hogback here. My opponent does have 4 cards in hand, and I'm just going to go 6 into life with Sabo. I want to see How much can we get him down on the life pool right now? He knows that if he keeps the 8 cost as well as the Lucci alive, then he's looking pretty solid. But if they aren't, some alarm bells should be going off in his head if I'm swinging with Sabo right now. He is going to give me a 2k counter. I think that maybe he's considering that I might go like a Sabo Borsellino play or something of the sorts. But I am feeling pretty good with just getting the cards out of hand right now. I'm going to rest one for Ice Age onto the Gecko Moria, bringing it down to a 3 cost. And now I will rest another one to use the Suru. And this is why I had to kind of take my time on this turn, was because I'm dropping a 2k counter from hand, and I don't want to potentially drop the counter I need to get out of the swing afterwards. But Helmeppo will lower down the Moria, and then Suru brought down the Lucci to a 2 cost. So KOing both with Lucci. I get to return 3 back to the bottom of the deck right now. But, I mean, look at our board. We are terrifying right now. But I left the Helmeppo up on purpose. I want my opponent to yet again feel that sense of false security, right? If they want, they can try and go for game, but if not, the following turn, how are you surviving? And since we got 2 cards out of their hand as well, it just puts us in a very strong position. So my opponent more than likely is just going to have to go for game here. They do end up just kind of mulling it over for a little bit, but, you know, the decision's a pretty easy one. You kind of just got to go for it, and that's what I wanted my opponent to do. I believe he was asking me how many 2Ks I had in trash at that moment, and I have 4 cards in hand. That last life actually ends up being pretty funny, but yeah, he's definitely decided now he's got to commit. So he is just going to attach this 4 to lead and go 9 to life, leaving him with 6 up. So that means that Helmeppo can be a 9k as well. And this is exactly what we planned. I just wanted my opponent to fully commit. And it's kind of hilarious. My last life was actually Ice Age, but I just wanted him to commit because I knew that I had the counter. So we get out of it with 2 Peronas and a brand new, and I'm showing my opponent that I got Ice Age, and I was like, that's wild. I could have killed Helmeppo right there, which would have just sealed the game, but I just wanted to make sure there were no blockers played, and I can just go for game easy peasy. But end up closing it out. Going second worked out really nice for us because my opponent did not see the Ice Age to deal with the Moria. So it has its merits, but it's I definitely feel like first always just gives you the better curve for this deck. And if you are able to draw into the cards you need, then you can pretty easily manage what your opponent has on board. But super solid game 8 here. Game 9, my opponent had a bit of a weird camera setup, so I'm not really going to be posting that video because unfortunately it's not very viewable. But it was a matchup against Katakuri. Oh, I think we're just saying what's up here at the very end. But I hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know your thoughts, and I'll catch y'all in the next one, all right? Peace.